One of the most unique things to come out of Disney Star Wars is Star Wars Visions. It is a collection of non canon stories which are made by different animation studios from around the world to project their vision of Star Wars. While not all of them are my favorite, they are all extremely interesting to watch, having different themes and interpretations of Star Wars based on where their studio is and their cultural values. And with the release of Volume 2 of Star Wars Visions and plenty of new stories, this is the perfect time to rank every episode, so let's begin.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
The worst episode of Star Wars Visions has to be TOB1. It isn't anything too bad when you first watch it, but for me on rewatch, it was just painful. Tob 1 acts like Caillou in this short. He's a whiny little child, and the problem for me is that he's a droid, not a human. I understand the whole point that anyone can be a Jedi, but the fact that a droid causes so much trouble and just has so much personality just feels a bit over the top. It isn't the worst thing in recent Star Wars, looking at you, Kenobi, but it's just a tiny bit too annoying and over the top for me to really get invested in the story.
I don't like so.
I like rock.
Tatooine Rhapsody is just a mainly boring episode. While I liked its concept, it felt still on execution. The vocal performances weren't good, besides, of course, Boba Fett. There were some moments of 3D animation that just looked bad to me. I enjoyed some small things, but it's just one I don't care about. I'm mixed on I Am Your Mother. It's the most comedic short of Star Wars Visions, which makes sense because it was made by Aardman Studios. Most of the jokes don't hit for me though, especially those with Wedge Antilles. It also felt really campy, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. I liked the scene in the second half of the episode where the girl and her mother worked as a team. I honestly thought we were getting a Lumity thing with the Twi'lek and the rich girl. I thought even it said so in the description, but sadly, or maybe happily, nothing happened. O's song has some amazing elements. While the base story wasn't anything too special, I really liked the last 5 minutes or so, as well as the animation, but those last 5 minutes really elevate the episode. I love the choice for Aru where she can either become a Jedi or stay and continue her father's legacy. It's such a Star Wars question, even though it has been done many times before, it worked really well here. The whole plot, it's not anything too special, but it's something enjoyable.
Out of hand.
The Twins could have been one of my favorite episodes, but it fails in a few ways. The concept was so incredibly cool, but it was a tad bit too ambitious in my opinion. Because much of the short, it was just exposition, and that worsened my enjoyment. The battle between the brother and sister looked phenomenal, and I loved that even though the brother was designed for evil, he became good, being a better Rey than Rey was. The only thing holding this episode back is having too little time and having too much exposition, just because the concepts. Wow.
My goodness, you've grown.
The Elder is one of the most interesting shorts in Star Wars Visions. The animation is amazing, but the story is quite basic. It tries to be super dark and gritty, but then chickens out at the last moment, having the story feel just a bit disjointed. The Elder is a very cool character. I loved everything about him, from his character design to his philosophies. He's just a force of pure evil, and it works so well in the scenario. The two Jedis in this episode, they weren't anything too special. I really enjoyed the duel in this episode, but giving the apprentice a fake out death really ruined my enjoyment of this episode. It isn't bad, but if they stuck to a tone, it could have been much better, like one you'll see later down on the list.
And not just the men.
One of the most underwhelming episodes of Star Wars Visions was The Bandits of Golak. While it was as gorgeous as some of the recent Star Wars shows like Clone Wars Season 7 or Bad Batch, it didn't make me feel anything while watching. The only reason I would ever rewatch it is just that it's eye candy and it has a good score. The plot feels like it just jumps from place to place for the sake of story without anything connecting it. And the characters are just too boring for me to care about at all, even though I did like the Inquisitor and how he was just laughing while his throat was being slit. But overall, I just could care less about this, and will probably be forgetting the plot in the next few days.
If one is to understand greatness, one must study all
Sith is a basic yet beautiful episode of Star Wars Visions. The backgrounds in this episode are just amazing. I really liked them because they felt like they had this worn down yet futuristic aesthetic, which is how Star Wars always feels, even though it looks different than what we're used to for Star Wars. The idea of a Sith retiring to paint is so interesting, and I wish it was explored a bit more. Like, I know Palpatine went to the opera, but this is a bit different. And how she needed to have a bit of darkness in the paintings to represent balance doesn't necessarily feel like Star Wars, but it's still a good theme. The duel at the end of the episode was just wow, and it has to be the best duel out of both volumes, I think. The colors were so striking, and this is where the episode really shines. Its color.
I see through the lies of the Jedi. I do not fear the dark side.
The duel is the most stylistic episode of Star Wars Visions. It's just gorgeous. The black and white aesthetic, with the occasional pops of red, added so much texture to the short. I loved the lone samurai story, which surprisingly isn't really done in Star Wars. The twist is that he's a Sith, which was something unique. I didn't expect it. I loved when he fought the Imperial Remnants and even the Inquisitor. Everything just looked so good. The duel was very impressive. The ending with the Sith giving the town leader a Kyber crystal, who's like a 10-year-old boy, was very cool. And the fact that he had a bunch of them, just a bunch of Kyber crystals on his belt, nice tease.
It seems in your anger, you killed her.
Akakiri has to have some of the best scenes out of Star Wars Visions, but some of the most mediocre as well. The episode just feels like the Anakin Padme romance from the prequels, except they're on a journey with two annoying buffoons. Those guys were so annoying, it really got on my nerves. Misa and Akakiri's romance was great, even if it was inspired by the prequels. But my favorite part of the episode was the ending. See, the face-off with Sith, it was fine, but what I really loved was Akakiri killing Misa. How the Sith used the Force to cause him to slice her, that was so dark. But it feels like something we would have already seen in Star Wars. I'm surprised we haven't, honestly. Although Misa comes back to life, it is still one of the darkest things out of this show as a whole, and for that alone, this episode deserves to be where it is.
I couldn't have. She was alive. I felt it.
In the Stars is a simple yet well done short film. First of all, out of all the stop motion shorts in Volume 2, this one is my favorite. It has a realistic yet pleasing aesthetic. The story is nothing too special, but was something that I not only enjoyed, but connected with, which hadn't really happened with any of the shorts so far on this list. There were moments, but as a whole, I really liked this story and it connected with me the whole time. I loved the concept of the living paintings and how the smog was blocking the connection between the spirits and the planet being just a side effect of the Empire's evil rule. Like, just the fact that it's a side effect. Good. While it isn't the deepest story ever told in Star Wars or even in Star Wars Visions, it is very enjoyable with great animation and a good story.
They asked you to spy on me, didn't they?
The Spy Dancer was an amazing short. Its story and animation, it's just great. I love the premise of a woman using dancing to plant trackers on Imperials. Dance itself just looks stunning. How the dancer's son was stolen and then indoctrinated into the Empire. That was just horrifying. And something we should have seen more with the sequels. Every character we see, no matter how limited their screen time is, makes a really good impression on me. And it's just an overall great film, even though there's not much to talk about.
You're with him! You brought him here to kill me!
I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but to me, Ninth Jedi is only the 6th best episode of Star Wars Vision, and 3rd best of Volume 1. It is a great story, but great opportunity for expansion. It isn't even my favorite episode out of Volume 1. The plot had so much intrigue where you don't know who to trust. Both the Jedi and the Sith weren't sure who's an ally, who's an enemy. I could certainly watch a whole show of this, but for that reason, it feels more like a pilot, and if it was its own thing, it could have been so much better. It's the fact that the story currently goes nowhere and makes it so you can't appreciate what it sets up. Even though it's a good standalone, it's not the greatest individual short. It feels like it's a better pilot than it is a standalone.
Anakin! I have the high ground!
Journey to the Dark Head was an amazing short. The animation was reminiscent of Legends of Korra, which I absolutely loved, and especially that first minute, the animation, it was just breathtaking. The whole concept set up here is so interesting. There is a group of Jedi monks who read yet only store prophecies. They get those prophecies through the rain. Two statues have an impact on the Force. All of that is just so interesting. The fact that the heads were both light and dark, but they're a mixture of both, it's a really cool idea, and in keeping with Star Wars, I think. Everyone has a darkness in them, but it's the balance. You gotta fight for your life to party. Haha. I also really liked the characters. Ara and Tool are both very interesting and had a great dynamic together. Ara's planning, commitment, and decisiveness gave the third act such a dynamic feel. I loved she was just riding off the speeder and then she used her sticky gloves and was cleaning up. And Tal's trauma, it was really interesting to get explored as well. It's just an overall great episode with great animation, great characters, and a great story.
I truly, deeply love you.
The Village Bride is such a sweet story. The whole first part with the man and the woman doing their cultural marriage ritual, it was so interesting to see and was a great setup when the bride would later be taken away. The town as a whole, they were all very interesting. The sister and everyone else who rebelled were offered food to the Jedi. They were all nice characters. Speaking of the Jedi, the two off-worlders were great, as well as giving a nice balance to the story with the characters. The Raiders were also interesting. While their use of reprogrammed B1 battle droids is cliche by now, it's still always welcome to see, and I'm never tired of hearing their voices in different shows and mediums. The final battle was also very well done, and how everyone, even the village folk, came into play. It was nice. The ending was sweet, and overall, it's just a good short. Out of
You're breaking my heart. You're going down a path I can't follow.
the first volume of Star Wars Visions, Lop and Ocho stood out to me as the closest to what an outsider would see as anime. I haven't watched any anime, and out of all the shorts in season 1, this was the one that had me want to watch anime most. The style is so distinct from Star Wars, yet also fits into the tapestry so well. All the characters look great, even if Ocho is that anime bunny in Star Wars. Love the story so much, too. The battle of what's best for the people and what's best for the planet was a really interesting debate. The Empire provided more jobs and helped futurize the planet, but it was also kind of oppressing them and reminisces to all the revolutions between the 18th and 20th century that you read about in history. The best part was that interfamiliar conflict, seeing the sister against sister fight, the sister daughter against father fight, all over just politics. Sad, but realistic. When Ocho became the father's next of kin was so great and so tragic at the same time. It's like, I feel bad for Lope there, but I feel great for Ocho, and it's like, oh, that it hurts. How the father wouldn't fight Lope. That was really nice, especially in Visions, where it seems everyone fights people and then they kill that people. But in this episode, he's refusing to let the Empire have him kill his daughter, and because of that, he loses his life, which is so tragic. Lope and Ocho is by far the best episode of Visions Volume 1 to me. Its characters, design, story, philosophy, it's all just top notch, and because of that, it is the third best episode of Star Wars Visions. When I began to watch Screecher's Reach, I did not think it would be my second favorite episode of Star Wars Visions. It looked fun, but also juvenile, and I couldn't have been any more wrong. First of all, the story reminded me of a YA novel I read a bit ago called The Uglies, which I enjoyed, though I haven't found the other books in the series. I really need to get to reading those. Either way, I really enjoyed the tone, which I thought worked well here. I also thought the characters were great. The main four felt like a family, with the older ones being surrogate parents, implying the kids don't have parents, which adds to that dystopian feel more for me. But the best part, it has to be the inside of the cave of the Screecher's Reach, the Screech Cave. No matter how many times I've said in the video, I mean it when I say it is gorgeous. As soon as we meet the Screecher, the juvenile feeling is lost completely. It became like a horror short, and seeing Doll kill that Sith in a cave, that was so dark. The fact that Doll working for a Sith, most likely the apprentice of that other one. That's a great twist. And I found it so horrifying that Dahl was tricked by the other Sith into thinking the Screecher was just something in her mind that it didn't exist. That's like, wow. Through and through, Screecher's Reach is something very new for Star Wars with a dystopian and horror feel, but it works so well and is something I would like to see a lot more of.
Another happy landing.
And the best episode of Star Wars Visions to me is The Pit. This episode is flying under the radar in my opinion because to me, it has Andor level storytelling. It just works so immensely well. The whole episode centers around the Empire forcing people to dig a hole and mining for Kyber and then just leaving them at the bottom when the mining is done. That is so cruel, so evil, and reminds me of Andor and the creativity of the Empire there, like with Narkina 5. The rest of the episode and its message of following the light, also really great. Seeing the Save folk help out the miners gives me that feeling of hope that Star Wars holds so dearly. I also loved when Cruz, who's voiced by the phenomenal Daveed Diggs, was thrown into the hole by Empire and he actually dies. They won't even let him escape. They want to leave the workers in a hole, see them not even as a tool, but as a slave. But the one thing that ties together the whole episode, and it's just so amazing, all of it's amazing and many great yet horrifying message, is just that mural we see in the end credits. That was an amazing end credit scene and was worth all the build up throughout the show. That is every episode of Star Wars Visions ranked. The show as a whole, overall, so strong, even though I didn't enjoy every individual episode of Tobe 1, as a whole, it is one of the best products out of Disney Star Wars. Is that sad? I don't know. As each episode is so different and it has such a heavily cultural basis on the themes and messages, my list is probably very different from yours. So you have any differences, share your list in the comments down below and we can talk about the differences and what you understand in the episodes and have a fun conversation. If you remember where each one of the quotes I used are from, tell me that in the comments down below. Nice little trivia. One project out of Disney Star Wars, which has just gotten too much hate in my opinion, is the Book of Boba Fett. So if you want to see why, check out this video. Subscribe for videos about things that are animated or geeky. Thanks for watching. I've been Fictional Fanatics, and until the next one, bye. Or, wait, no. May the Force be with you. That's what I should have said. Dang it.